This is CityCast Twin Cities. I'm Sean McPherson, and here's what the cities are talking about. Tiffany, what was your favorite musician / band when you were 16 years old?
Death Cab for Cutie. I was going through something.
I completely hear you.
A divorce, maybe.
That's rough. 16 years old, already hitting divorce. Hans, what was your favorite musician or artist when you were 16 years old?
Oh, Tiffany, if we were near the same age, we would be the ones getting divorced because mine was Counting Crows. So absolutely, like the two of us would have been on opposite. Oh, just heartbreak.
What the hell is wrong with you people? You're listening to Adam Duritz and Ben Gibbard. I was like enjoying the Roots having a good life, and y'all are just tearing your beer in at age 16.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sad. That's Hans Buetow, the senior producer for Neverpost and a CityCast contributor, and Tiffany Bowie, a producer here at CityCast. It's Friday. We're going to cover some Twin Cities wins, and we're going to learn about the Theater of Seasons and the thriving Wiccan community here. And we're going to check out a new opera that's premiering early next year. It is Friday. We want to celebrate some wins in the Twin Cities, and thankfully, there is a lot to celebrate around this time of year. And I want to highlight North Minneapolis' Food Bank Eatery. And you can't really tell what a community is made of or even what a business is made of until a moment of crisis. And if you are judging the Minneapolis Food Bank Eatery on how they respond to crisis, they respond beautifully and so wonderfully for their community. It's been just crisis after crisis for food insecurity this year in particular, and the Food Bank Eatery that started as a food truck now has a permanent location. They're over at 47th and Lyndale on the north side, and Jennifer Banks is the heartbeat of the organization, and the mission is so simple. They're feeding kids. They're not turning people away. Free meals are available Tuesday through Saturday, 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. And there's a beautiful piece on CBS, WCCO, talking just about the fact that they're going to get food to these kids. They come in. They're even going to let them help out if they can around the kitchen. And it's just one of those moments where you feel better about the world after you learn about the Food Bank Eatery. Hans, let's keep it going with some wins and find out about Pam.
Pam is incredible. What a win for all of us. Southwest Voices highlighted her recently because she and a couple of her neighbors spent time recently watching over a person who was sleeping in the street in November for 5 days. She ended up walking him over to Simpson Housing for a shower, for some food. She got him help when the Minneapolis police came over. They found out that he was endangered and missing person, and she managed to she said very clearly, I don't want somebody dying in our neighborhood. Let's help our neighbors. And yes, please. More of that, please. Thanks, Pam. Tiffany, what about you?
My win for the week is that I finally have heat after not having had heat in my apartment building all winter and fall. So my landlord told us that the boiler needed to be replaced, and after a lot of back and forth and being cold and fleeing to my boyfriend's house, the boiler has been fixed, the heat is restored, and I feel like a normal person who can shower in my own home.
Oh, that might be the biggest win of all.
Yeah. That's like not a win for the week. That's a win for the year.
No kidding.
And you don't really know how valuable heat is until you absolutely don't have it. And you go, I guess this is really what makes living possible.
Yes.
So Tiffany, I am so glad you can be comfortable in your space. And I am so thankful that the heat got turned on. It took an embarrassingly long time for them to get it together, but at least you can be warm for the rest of this holiday season.
Yeah, you just like will never take it for granted again entering a warm room, because I was sleeping with 3 blankets and my nose started getting cold in the middle of the night. And my dog had a sweater on and was still like shivering every time I went to go look at her. So, hold your radiators close, guys, but not too close. Might burn you.
We want to hear from you. What is your win for the week? And what do you think is on that sweater that Tiffany's dog is wearing? Let us know by texting or leaving us a voicemail on the CityCast Twin Cities hotline, 612-217-0637. You might hear those comments in one of our mailbag segments. We got more to discuss, and before we do that, we're going to take a quick break. Hans, I am deep in Hanukkah land as we speak, and it is a marathon of a holiday, which is at times, I'm in the uphill part on the Boston Marathon, like a mile 21.
You're on the way, man.
Now I have a Purple Rain themed New Year's Eve party across the street, and for me, that's like it for holidays left this year. But Hans, you are adding something to your holiday calendar this weekend, right?
I am, Sean. Sunday. Mark it. Wake up your children because it's the winter solstice on Sunday. I'm really excited about this. So 9:03 a.m., that's the moment that the sun will be as far south in the sky as it's going to get for the whole winter. The Earth starts rotating enough that it comes back north, and we're on our way towards spring. So in that moment, at 9:03 on that sunrise, we will have gone through the longest night of the year and are on our way.
There's no doubt that that is something to celebrate, but I think a lot of us in this world just let it come and go. I didn't know that you were Mr. Solstice. How did that happen?
I didn't know that either. I will be honest with you. This is new for me, celebrating something like this. So I'm embarking on a project in 2026 to try out a bunch of new holidays for myself. I don't think I've realized we don't have enough meaningful moments built into our year, that like we've got this artificially lit, climate controlled existence that can be really disconnected from the rotation of the earth and the seasons. And I'm just feeling really, especially in this January through May sort of dearth of anything to have any reason to have a themed party. Could we have more events that celebrate the season and celebrate where we are? And as I was thinking about this, I heard a podcast episode that called this celebration of these big seasonal changes the theater of seasons, which is so beautiful. And I was like, oh, wait, that's right. There are all these other people who are doing this theater of seasons. And so this podcast was Minnesota Unraveled, which is published by the Minnesota Historical Society. And the episode that I was listening to was about the very surprising fact, I did not know this, that the Twin Cities is home to a large population of pagans who are masters of that theater of seasons. And beyond those pagans, it's also home to one of the largest publishers of metaphysical and occult books in the world. I did not know that either. Like, what?
We don't just have to be two guys talking about it. We are actually connected with the host of Minnesota Unraveled today, Dr. Chantel Rodriguez, who's here to talk about this somewhat hidden but like legitimately population level substantial group in the Twin Cities. Dr. Rodriguez, you are a public historian at the Minnesota Historical Society. Great job. Way to go. What an awesome title. So first off, Doctor, congratulations to you on that.
Thank you.
And for folks like me who 3 days ago didn't think I would ever talk to a public historian, can you tell me what that means and why that background is helpful in covering the litany of topics you cover on Minnesota Unraveled, and maybe this one in particular?
Yeah, definitely. So I do have a PhD in history and worked in academia for a bit, but now I'm in the public history realm. And so broadly speaking, a public historian is someone who makes history accessible to general audiences. And I know that seems really broad because it's true. And public history itself, I like to say, is history that's made for, with, and by the public. So that means that it's not just like an academic in an ivory tower writing a history, right? We have this big question in public history of who owns the past, right? So who gets to tell stories, who has the right to do so? And of course, the truth is there's a lot of people who own the past, and there's a lot of contentious moments of power struggle over telling those stories. And so in Minnesota Unraveled, in our podcast, when we think about how is this public history, the story that I came across, which is the fact that Llewellyn exists, the fact that we have one of the largest pagan communities, was like, wow, I want to know more about this, but that's not my community and that's not my story. So who can I talk to learn more about it, right? So public history is fantastic, but there's also just so many different ways to do public history, and there's a lot of different ways to be a public historian.
I am the public that you're talking to, and I was deeply grateful for this. This was excellent because I'm really interested in this topic. I'm like embarking on all these things, but I think like let's start real basic with it, with this community. Can you just real quickly define for us what is a pagan?
That is a really great question, and it is one that we, of course, explored in the episode. I spoke with two folks, Dr. Murphy Pisa, spelled like pizza, the pie, but pronounced differently. And then Sandra Weschke, who is the current president of Llewellyn Worldwide Limited. And so that was a big part of our conversation in that episode, because there's no simple answer to what being a pagan is or what paganism is. But in Murphy's word, the way that she talked about it was being a pagan, or paganism generally speaking, is this sort of umbrella term for a lot of different like religions and spiritualities. And it's really about non-traditional approaches. And by non-traditional, I think we know what that means, right? Not Christian forms of spirituality and religion. And so to be a pagan, broadly conceived, can mean it's about a personal experience. There's a connection to nature. Oftentimes, pagans will celebrate seasonal cycles through rituals. They will honor deities, gods and goddesses, and there's that profound connection to the earth. And so what it means to be a pagan differs person to person, right? And so the way Murphy talked about it was if you're a witch, you're a pagan. If you're a druid, you're a pagan. If you're a heathen, you're a pagan. But then you can go talk to an individual person who identifies as a heathen. They're like, I actually reject the term pagan. And so it's complicated, but it's just this really broad umbrella term that I think can just vary if you're talking to a group of individuals who identify as witches, for example, and are in a coven, or if you're talking to an individual practitioner.
I got to mention, we've both dropped the words Llewellyn Limited, and we're going to talk about them. They're a big publishing house. It is just the most Dharma Initiative name I've ever heard. Every time I feel like I'm on the TV show Lost. So for those of you who are like, what the heck are they talking about? We will talk a little bit more about this particular powerhouse of a publishing house in this space. But beautiful episode. And it seems like there was two big questions to answer. One of which you just kind of did, what is a pagan? What is a witch? But also, why are they thriving so much here in the upper Midwest? Our WPC, or witches per capita, is very high. We might have 20,000 witches involved in covens in the Twin Cities. And that doesn't really identify people who are just going about their witching without being connected to a community. And Dr. Rodriguez, if you don't mind, there was a little bit of conversation you had with Murph Pisa that I thought it comes from actually before Murph lived in the Twin Cities. In this about a minute, you can really hear why I think the Twin Cities might work. So I want to listen to Murph Pisa and then explain why I think the Twin Cities might thrive.
It was August when this festival was going on, and so this is the first harvest, and so they were celebrating kind of the culling of the herd and the cutting down of the first crops, and that's symbolized in a lot of European lore, especially British lore, by cutting down John Barleycorn. If anyone remembers the song of John Barleycorn being cut down and turned into beer, he's the metaphor, the harvest god. And so they had actors get up, and there was a gentleman who was the corn god, and he kind of sang a song, and he looked at the goddess who was dressed in black and carrying a sickle, and he said, I want to live. And she said, and you shall. And she took her sickle and acted like she was slitting his throat because she was cutting down the crops. And he collapsed, and they wrapped him in the shroud and carried him around in the dark, and we all kind of put our hands on him and then came back up on the stage. And there was this real dramatic moment of light, and then in the chair where he had been sitting as the old man reappeared a young boy who was the reborn crop who came back in the spring. So the mystery there being that you never truly die, you're always reborn, and life and death are part of a never-ending cycle, and that's the secret. So it was done very, Greek tragedy dramatically, and I just was absolutely stunned. It was incredible, and I went into the bathroom and I threw up.
There is something wildly Minnesotan about this, even with the New York Times marimbas beneath it. There's something still very okay, this beautiful cycle of life, and pull out the sword, and what is going on. I'm not belittling this story. This is beautiful imagery. And then she's like, and then I threw up. And Dr. Chantel Rodriguez, are we like a capital for sensible, independent-minded freaks who probably also know how to shovel snow and make sure that our neighbors are okay? Is there is there something kind of blue-collar, mystic friendly about the Twin Cities?
I mean, absolutely. I think the way that Murphy talks about it in the episode, and even Sandra Weschke, is that, beyond Llewellyn being here to publish books, there is something special about Minnesota as a landscape, right? The fact that we have 10,000-ish, right? Plus lakes, we have rivers, we have incredible green spaces that are here. And there's just a way for folks in the Twin Cities, which is an urban space, to still be able to connect to nature, right? And obviously, this is not the only group that connects to nature in really special and spiritual ways. Our Native communities obviously have been here and we're first here. But I think that's really something that's so important, right? For these rituals at the turning of the seasons to be able to have those things. And I should say I'm originally from Texas, like South Texas. So I'm like a summer child all year round. And so when I moved to Minnesota, I was like, this is wild that there are actually 4 seasons and that perhaps winter lasts too long. But there are such distinct seasons here and you can truly experience that. And so absolutely, I think Murphy makes a really good point really throughout her entire conversation on that episode that, yeah, these bodies of water, this clear presence of 4 seasons is just a way for people to connect to nature and then just find these ways of connecting to earth, nature, spirituality that I think is so important for them. And I think I don't really believe in coincidences, right? There's so many different ways and reasons that people came here. And even before the 60s and 70s, there were people that were connecting to these kinds of spiritualities. But what is it about the 60s and 70s that makes things kind of blow up, right? That starts bringing people in droves and witches to the Twin Cities.
Yeah, the bringing of the all of these different independent-minded folks to the Twin Cities has this history. You go deeply into this history in the episode, and I encourage people to listen to it because it's really fascinating to see how this evolved. But it's deeply tied, it seems, to, we have now gotten there. Let's talk about Llewellyn Worldwide, which is this publisher that I didn't know about. I went to my local library yesterday and I said, how many Llewellyn Worldwide books do you have? And they printed me out a list of 21 books that they had. They were very surprised, as was I, that there are so many. So tell us a little bit about Llewellyn Worldwide and their connection to building this community.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I did go to Barnes & Noble and I was in the South Transformation section and I was just I love looking at spine covers. I love looking at designs and I was just so taken back by how many Llewellyn books were on that shelf.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I was like, wait a second, hold on. This is based here in Minnesota.
That's so
It
cool.
is the oldest and like one of the largest publishers of metaphysical that exists. Where did it come from and why here, right, of all places? And so, Llewellyn is originated in 1901 by this man named Llewellyn George, who was an astrologer in Wales in the United Kingdom, came to the United States, kept his company going, passed on to somebody else. And eventually Carl Weschke, who's the founder or now the sort of founder and visionary of Llewellyn Worldwide, who has since passed away, bought it in 1961. And he himself came from like this prominent Roman Catholic family in the Twin Cities who owned like a pharmaceutical company in the area. Llewellyn, under Carl Weschke as this visionary, was able to sort of grow his company in these wonderful ways, from getting authors to publish with him. They had their own bookstore called Gnostica Bookstore, which was apparently in this old 2-story building that used to be a mortuary, and they painted it purple, which I was just sort of like, wow, okay, this is very occulty, right? How could you not want to go to a purple old mortuary bookstore? And so he had his books there, and he was also producing them there as well. But in order to be successful, he also had to get his books in big name bookstores like B. Dalton and Walden Books, which really helped to make a lot of the books they were publishing in series to be very successful. And so Sandra Weschke, who is, of course, the wife of Carl, spoke a lot about how important that move was to making Llewellyn successful.
Dr. Chantel Rodriguez, you truly unraveled this portion of Minnesota history that I didn't know about, Hans didn't know about, and so many folks don't know about. We do strongly encourage folks to go check out that episode and enjoy it. Thank you for the work you're doing. You're from South Texas. On the solstice, a high of 30 degrees, a low of 1 degree. Will you be celebrating? How many layers will you be wearing, and how much will you be swearing?
I will not disclose that information at this time.
You're a public historian.
I'm trying to be more Minnesotan, and I think if I gave you that answer, I would definitely lose credit on the street for me attempting to be Minnesotan.
Well, thank you, Dr. Chantel Rodriguez. Minnesota Unraveled. Awesome stuff put together by Minnesota Historical Society. And we look forward to connecting with you as you do more awesome episodes about our state's great history.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me.
We'd love to hear from you. What are you doing for the solstice? Let us know by texting or leaving us a voicemail on the CityCast Twin Cities hotline. That number is 612-217-0637. Those suggestions might show up in a mailbag segment in the future. We have a lot more to discuss. Before we do that, we're going to take a quick break. We have Darius Gillard, Vice President of Impact from the Minnesota Opera, here to talk about an incredibly exciting production that's coming up quick in the new year. This is a world premiere of a brand new chamber opera about the life of American composer Florence Price, and it's titled My Name is Florence, and it's by composer B.E. Boykin and St. Paul-based librettist Harrison David Rivers. It opens on January 31st of next year. Darius, what's a chamber opera?
Yeah, so a chamber opera is just an opera that features a smaller sort of cohort of instruments. So if you're doing a full opera, you may have anywhere between 25 northwards of 60 pieces. For a chamber opera, you're looking at more like 13, 14, 15.
Got you. And this is pretty exciting that there's a new work happening and that it's debuting right here in the Twin Cities. So can you highlight some things in particular about My Name is Florence?
Yeah, so it's kind of like an operatic biopic, but a little bit truncated. Florence Price is the first Black woman composer to have a symphony performed by a major U.S. orchestra. And a lot of that work is little known, little performed, and this work sort of highlights her journey and some of her life experiences that shaped that musical output. There are a lot of themes around legacy. Florence, her mother, and her daughter, they all have the same name, Florence. There was this sort of quote, it's like men give their sons their names all the time. Why can't women do it? And musically, it's very accessible. There are a lot of gospel and jazz idioms that B.E. sort of incorporated that make it really a toe tapper and something that you will likely find yourself humming after you leave the theater. And it's a short one. It's only about an hour and 20 minutes long, which is, for me, fantastic. The older I get, the less waking hours I have after a certain time. And unlike a lot of operas, it's not necessarily focused on the drama and tragedy, but more so focused on Black joy and sort of finding your way in the world.
Listening to her music, to Florence Price's music, is a joyful experience. I find it's toe-tapping, and her story is super, super interesting. So it's really cool to hear you highlighting it. But I also think it's really cool that you're doing it in collaboration with some local artists. So Harrison David Rivers is local to us. Is it common for you all to collaborate with such local people in big, prominent roles when you do stuff like this?
Yeah, absolutely. We do our best to try to tap into the artistic talent that's here in our community because we want those stories to reflect experiences of our community if we can. Harrison has written a lot of work and done a lot of work in the Twin Cities, so he was a natural pick for the librettist for this opera.
Let's talk about opera in the Twin Cities right now. We just learned that we have just a surplus of witches. I don't mean we got to send some of them away. I just mean we are lousy with witches over here, Darius. How are we doing with opera fans, opera practitioners, and your role as the Vice President of Impact? How is the impact going for opera in the Twin Cities?
Yeah, so I know for a lot of folks, the Minnesota Opera is the natural go-to as far as where do we find opera in the Twin Cities. But there are a number of other smaller opera companies here. There's Ann Opera Theater, there's Skylark Opera Theater, just a handful of things. I think if you go up to Duluth, there's an opera company based out of there that does really wonderful work. I'll say the downside to some of the smaller companies is that they typically produce just once a year, whereas the Minnesota Opera produces almost year-round.
Follow-up question. Quick follow-up question. What's the Venn diagram overlap of opera lovers and witches?
I couldn't speak to you before that first segment. I was not aware that we even had such a healthy presence of practitioners here in the cities.
You know what? Witches do like to sing, though. I have a feeling that's true. I don't know that's true. If you're a witch, please tell us because I want to sing with you. But you're also a singer, right? And I expect the answer to this question to be sung to us. Is there anything coming up for you personally that you're excited about doing that you have booked? Or is there a dream role that somebody listening right now could book you for that you would love to play?
Sure. So I'm covering at Penumbra right now for Black Nativity, and then I'll be
fun.
Yeah, it's a beautiful, another joyful sort of
Yeah.
experience, and another quick one. I love it. It's about an hour, 20 minutes long, beautiful show. And then I'll be going on for Don't Bother Me, I Can't Cope, also at Penumbra in March, I believe.
That's fun.
Yeah. And I say, let's see, dream roles. I would love to do Hunchback, the Hunchback.
You'd love to be the Hunchback.
I would love that.
Yeah.
I'd love to do a Quasimodo.
Yeah.
Darius, that's an impressive resume. But listen, if you're talking about musical royalty on this call, it's me and Hans Buetow. Central Orchestra, spring semester 1999. Hans, bass chair number 1. I was bass chair number 2. We both did German bowing, as I recall.
Yep.
So Darius, don't be intimidated. Like, just,
We're just we're normal people, just
I
like you.
know you're doing Black Nativity at one of the most, revered repertory theaters in the country, but like, just be cool. We're friends here.
Yeah.
I got introduced to a bunch of classical music in high school. I was in a McPhail program. I got brought to the Magic Flute at Minnesota Opera. And Darius, I just thought it was long, and I thought, no thanks. And my question is, take awesome bass player Sean McPherson walking out of the Minnesota Opera, didn't love Magic Flute, and you can just go, hey, I'm Darius Gillard from the future. Here's what I want you to check out before you give up on opera. Where would you have sent me?
Okay, so a couple of things. I have a show that I would send you to see, and then I have a specific opera house that I would send you to see anything at. So as far as shows, not to self-promote, but I think that Pagliacci is an incredible opera if you want to be introduced to opera. I would say, though, if you're a little bit younger, maybe not. It's a classic tale of, betrayal, love, and murder. And multiple people will be biting it in the show. But the music is incredible. The forward motion is sustained throughout. You don't get bored at any moment. So I'll say the difference between this and Magic Flute. Magic Flute is twice the length. And the storyline is a little bit less believable, right? How often do you see a giant snake flying through the sky and 3 witches have to... Oh, the witches!
The witches! I was going to say, don't rule it out.
The witches have to subdue them. But in the case of Pagliacci, people get cheated on every day, unfortunately. People get, So, relatable content, beautiful music. And as far as places I would send you, of course, Minnesota Opera needs to be your first stop. And then after that, maybe check out Chicago Lyric. They do really wonderful things and not quite as pricey as the Met in New York.
The word opera, Darius, has a bit of an alienating quality, I think, for a lot of young people. And also, I want to be clear, I think for a lot of folks think that's a white thing. Just go, oh, opera, and you're tasked with community engagement and equity. That's one of the roles you have.
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing to fight against that, or to somehow change the conception of who's welcome at the opera and who it's for?
Yeah, so I really draw on my own personal experience as far as that goes. I didn't see my first opera until I was probably 19 or 20. And to be honest with you, I watched it and I was like, okay, whatever. And then, I went on about my life. But the reason why I didn't see value in it isn't because it's inherently not valuable. It's because I didn't see myself in it. I didn't understand it. Everybody doing it sounded the same. And it didn't feel like this was for me. And I think our approach here at the opera is to sort of break down those barriers and make it a little bit more accessible just by sharing some of that information. The more you know about the art form, the easier it is to enjoy. And the more welcome you feel in our spaces, the easier it is to go in, leave, and then come back.
Darius Gillard, the Vice President of Impact from the Minnesota Opera. I am really excited for My Name is Florence, and I just want to co-sign. When you said it's a toe tapper, I think it's just more than that. I watched some of this woman's music performed live by the Minnesota Orchestra, and I was like, they have a comfort around the beat that often eludes even an ensemble as exciting as the Minnesota Orchestra. So this thing opens January 31st, 2026 with B.E. Boykin and St. Paul-based Harrison David Rivers collaborating on this new piece of this chamber opera. Darius Gillard, we are so thankful that you came on CityCast to talk about it and so grateful for the work you're doing.
Thank you so much.
That's all for today here on CityCast Twin Cities. I'm your host, Sean McPherson. Hans Buetow, Tiffany Bowie, Dr. Chantel Rodriguez, and Darius Gillard, thank you for being here today. Our executive producer is Anna Weigel. Our creative producers are Adam Sage and Tiffany Bowie. Our audience engagement manager is James Napoli, and our senior account executive is Heather Hull. Post-production this week was done by PJ Shahamat, and our host is me, Sean McPherson. Our theme music is by Carl Christensen. Our mailbag music is by Adam Sage. Our ad music is by Sven Lindvall and Sarah, the instrumentalist from Epidemic Sounds via Getty Images. You can get more news delivered right to your inbox by subscribing to the CityCast Twin Cities newsletter. If you enjoyed today's show, why not share this podcast with an opera lover? We'll see you back here on Monday for more news from around the city.